And good afternoon, producer Susan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jersee Joe. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Did you get hammered by that storm that came through last night?
Oh yes.
Any hail
And probably
damage? Or
another like 30 minutes. We're gonna get it again.
all right, better do this before you lose your power. All right. You been able to cut your grass with all the rain?
I did. I was able to cut it. I forget if it was Saturday or Sunday.
Okay, good. All right. Well, we got a bunch that, by the way, we're recording this a day later. We normally record on Tuesday and post on Wednesday. Today we're recording on Wednesday. We're going to post on Thursday. Today's July 29th. Today was the day Dr. Fauci testified. He didn't really testify. He just took the Fifth Amendment 100 times. In fact, one time he said, yeah, "What color tie are you wearing?" And he said, "I plead the Fifth Amendment." He asked him, "Is your name Dr. Fauci?" Plead the Fifth Amendment. It was just hilarious.
I don't
Anyway,
understand why people do that with like ridiculous questions. Like, how do you incriminate yourself by the color of your tie or your
yeah,
name?
it's just
You know?
ridiculous. Well, let me tell you what we're going to try to squeeze in today. I normally start with about 15 items. I try to cut it down to eight, and sometimes I can't even get all eight in. Anyway, so today is July 29th. Stupidest thing I've heard all week. We'll tell you about. Now, we talked about this before, but New York City Mayor Mondami has come out with even more ridiculous stuff about the city-owned and operated grocery stores he intends to open, and we'll tell you how even more ludicrous his plan is. In our quote of the week, we have a clip from Bill Maher explaining why Trump won the last presidential election. Again, Bill Maher's a liberal. He's not
Yep.
but he's saying, "Hey, dummies, here's why Trump won the election, and it's your fault." He's talking to the Democrats. In our science minute, you know what the Starlink satellite system is, right?
Yeah, Elon Musk's satellite system.
Right. Well, we'll tell you how many Starlink satellites there are in orbit around the Earth, and how often one of them falls out of orbit and burns up. Um, We'll tell you how much money some AI systems are making for the companies that develop them and some scary things that have been happening during the testing of those most recent models. By the way, everybody thinks AI is free, right? Like if you're on, there's Genesis and Chat GPT that you can use for free, right? So you wonder,
Yeah.
how can AI make money? Well, we'll tell you how they're making money, and we'll tell you some scary things that are happening with the new models. We'll also tell you about a restaurant promotion and all you can eat pasta promotion that clearly, using the Democrat standards, has to be racist. And we'll tell you all about it and why it must be a racist promotion. Now, next thing now we all know it's no secret that the economies of Texas and Florida are booming,
Hmm.
uh, partially as a result of companies and high net worth individuals moving from blue states like California, to places like Florida and Texas. And we've talked about that in the past. We've given specifics, the names of the people who are doing it. Well, we'll tell you where just Florida as an economy ranks compared to other countries around the world. It's just stunning how large Florida's economy has become. Florida's not a country, but it's ranking right up there it's competing with countries around the world in terms of gross domestic product. Um, Here's an interesting one. We'll tell you about one of the least used names for new babies was last year and what that decline has to do with President Trump. Moving on, we've talked about how high people run from high taxes. Well, in 2024, Scotland voted to increase its top income tax rate to 48%, believing that it would increase its tax revenues. Well, we'll tell you what that increase had on tax revenues last year in 2025. Time permitting, we'll tell you about a story from New Jersey. It's an old story. I didn't realize this, but I heard about it this week. How a bureaucratic delay got a woman killed a decade ago, and why that story is still relevant today. And finally, our taxpayer relief shot this week comes from Detroit, where two home invaders break into the house of a 75-year-old man at 3 o'clock in the morning. And all I'll say is that it doesn't end well for them. All right. Stupidest thing I've heard all week. I'll actually play a clip. Here's his announcement, and then I'll tell you why it's stupid. Here we go. All right, see if I can get this to play.
Here's how it will work. Once a month, our five city-run grocery stores will set prices for this core set of goods at 30% below typical retail price.
Remember, core, and when it says core, he's talking about meat, poultry, fish, eggs, milk, butter, 30% lower.
No exceptions, no gimmicks. The savings will last for the entire month. That means no weekly fluctuations nor sticker shock at the checkout line.
So what he's saying, once a month, every month, at the beginning of the month, They're going to take these core bread, eggs, milk, sugar, coffee, and they're going to price them 30% lower than being charged by the surrounding stores. And they're going to do that every month. And they're going to hold those prices for the rest. So no matter what happens, even if the price of eggs doubles, they're going to continue to sell them for 30% less than they were at the beginning of the month. Now, here's why that. Here's a little economics lesson for everybody. If a grocery store wants to sell food 30% cheaper than the competitors, one of three things has to happen. Number one is both the suppliers and workers are willing to accept 30%. The suppliers are willing to accept 30% lower prices for uh, the food they're selling, and your workers must accept 30% lower wages. Do you think either one of those is going to happen?
No,
No.
no,
Or
not at all.
two, taxpayers will be covering the difference through taxpayer subsidies. Or four, the store will be operating at a loss and will soon will have no choice but to go out of business. So prices aren't actually 30% lower. They've just been shifted somewhere else in the
Mhm.
chain, in the sales chain. So something that people have a hard time understanding is that prices don't disappear. They simply cause an allocation of scarce resources. If you move the costs around, hide them or delay them, you can do that, but you can't make them vanish. So having said that, let's do this experiment. So let's go ahead and have them do the experiment. What do you think will happen to the surrounding grocery stores and bodegas that are within, say walking distance of these stores that are
They'll
offering?
also lower their prices.
They can't. The margins, the pre-tax margins on grocery stores are average 6%. So if you're a grocery store, like if you're a what's the big grocery store chain out by you?
Giant or Weiss.
Giant's doing maybe a 6 or 7%. You think Giant can afford to lower the price of their
Oh no,
by 30%? They can't. They can't
no.
lower their prices by 30%.
And that's why they have weekly sales based on the prices they get from their distributors that week, where they can
Okay.
pass the savings on.
Right. So if the other stores can't afford to cut their prices on those, and those are not like, or those core, those are high volume items. Everybody buys milk, everybody
Yeah,
buys hamburger. So what do you think is going to happen to those other grocery stores and bodegas that can't compete?
they'll go out of business.
They're going to go out of business. And by the way, this experiment was tried in Kansas City a couple years ago, and 2 years ago, Kansas City shut down all of their city-owned and operated grocery stores because they were all, despite millions and millions of tax, they just couldn't make a go of it, and they finally shut them down. So if the pattern holds, he's going to succeed in putting all the surrounding grocery stores, and you know what a bodega is, right? It's like a
Yeah,
little
it's a small grocery store,
like a little
that
market,
serves a little
it's like
community.
a neighborhood market.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's gonna put all of those out of business, and then after they're all gone, and they finally either he or his successor, the next mayor, shuts down these grocery stores because they're sucking taxpayers dry. Where are the people going to get the food?
Yeah. It's gonna be a food desert.
It's going to be a food desert, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So, that's the stupidest thing I've heard all
Mhm.
week. I thought it was stupid he was going to have city-owned and operated markets, and then when I heard him announce that every month they're going to price those core items 30% lower, I'm going, okay, this is stupid. You're going to put all the other grocery stores and bodegas out of business. And when your city-owned and operated stores basically go out of business, people are going to have no groceries.
Mhm.
And so that's exactly what's going to happen there. All right. So let's go on to our quote of the week, which is Bill Maher explaining, and he's kind of angry at the Democrats for what they did, and he's explaining why Trump won and why the Democrats are at fault. Here we go.
Democrats kept saying in the campaign, you can't possibly think Trump is preferable to what we're selling. And many voters keep saying, yes, we can. In fact, our primary reason voting for him is to create a bulwark against you because your side thinks silence is violence and looting is not. Because you're the party of chasing speakers off college campuses and making everyone walk on eggshells and replacing let's not see color with let's see it always and everywhere, formerly the position of the Ku Klux Klan.
So what do you think? Is he right? Is that why many people voted for Trump, not because they liked Trump, but because they were kind of fed up with the the,
Yeah.
the, the direction the
Yeah, I think that a lot of people were just tired of the stupidity of, yeah.
yeah. So
Because
yeah,
a
I think
lot of people, and I know you're not a fan. I mean, you're a Republican, but you're not a fan of Donald Trump. But
no, I wouldn't want Donald Trump as my next door neighbor. You
yeah.
know, so I think Donald Trump can be an asshole. Now, don't get me wrong. Do I prefer Donald Trump over, and do I think a lot of the things, do I like a lot of his policies? Absolutely. Do I prefer him over Kamala Harris? Absolutely. Do I think he's making some desperately needed changes? Yes, but as a human being,
Mhm.
I'm not a big fan of Donald Trump as a human being. I don't
Oh
think
yeah,
he,
as a human, he is so crass and
right, right. Yeah, anyway, so let's move on to Starlink satellites. For those not familiar, um, about 5 or 6 years ago, Elon Musk began launching Starlink satellites. They're about twice the size of a basketball, and he began to launch them into low Earth orbit, and they provide both communications and internet connectivity now anywhere in the world. Like if you're in the middle of the Congo, there's
Mhm.
there's no cell towers, there's no landlines, there's no nothing. If you have a Starlink phone and you can charge it on a solar charger, you can go internet and voice communication with one of the Starlink satellites, which cover basically every square inch of the Earth. I think there's some places in Antarctica where they don't have coverage. You want to guess how many Starlink satellites there are now in orbit?
there's like a couple thousand.
11,000, over 11,000,
11,000.
11,000. But with 11,000, do you know how often one of those 11,000 satellite falls out of orbit?
Fairly regularly.
Every 16 hours on average, one more than one a day, 10 a week, 10 a week. Now, you say, well, at that rate, what's going to happen? Well, when they launch a Saturn rocket, which is what carries them into space, each Falcon 9 rocket can carry between 20 and 60 of those satellites. And you ask, well, why the difference? Well, it depends where they need them, because the rocket can only deposit them into a very narrow path. So if you don't need 60 new satellites in any particular area, they're not going to send 60 up.
Mhm.
But when there was a lot of gaps and voids, yeah, they were sending up 60 at a time. Now they're sending up 20 at a time, because as the rocket goes up and it can begin to release them like along a path, drop one here, drop one here, drop one here, drop one here. But they can't maneuver and drop one over Germany and say, let's drop the next one over New Jersey. They can't do that. They all have to drop them,
Mhm.
but that's how they're replenishing, and then they're sending them up between 20 and 60 at a time. So every couple of weeks they launch a Falcon 9 rocket and they just replace the ones that are falling. Now, what's interesting, by the way, do you know how much a kilogram weighs?
About a half a pound.
No, 2.2 pounds
Oh,
actually.
sorry, it's twice a pound. Yeah,
Yeah,
twice a pound.
a kilogram is 2.2 pounds.
Yeah.
Um, each satellite weighs about 30 kilograms, 66 pounds, and when it burns up, it releases about 60 pounds of aluminum oxide into the upper
Mhm.
atmosphere. Now, nobody knows if that's going to have any detrimental effect or not. Over time, what's going to
Mhm.
happen to that aluminum oxide, if it's just going to be carried down and back to Earth. And by the way, the Earth is rich in aluminum.
Mhm.
Aluminum is when they dig up dirt, they get that's
Mhm.
how you get aluminum ore. So nobody knows if there's going to be adverse, but yeah, every 10 times a week, one of those 11,000 satellites falls out of orbit and burns up, falling back into Earth. All right. So let's go on to how AI systems are generating money. And I was stunned by this. OpenAI and Anthropic, two of the big ones, are on track to have an
Mhm.
annual revenue rate of 120 billion. Anthropic alone, and I believe they call their system Claude,
Yep.
is going to come
Mhm.
in around 71 billion in revenue. That 71 billion is more revenue than Starbucks and McDonald's combined.
How are they getting their
Combined.
revenue though?
I'm sorry?
I mean, you can pay for, different levels of it, but
And here's what they're doing. They're licensing their advanced systems to businesses where you're a car maker,
Mhm.
or you're a financial firm, and they license them to give them access to these advanced models, which can do incredible things like, if you want help designing a car.
Mhm.
Um, and they charge them by the token. And I wasn't sure what a token was. It turns out a
It's like a
token,
credit.
well, a token, no, they charge you by how much your usage, and they charge you by the token. And I wasn't sure what a token was. You know how much how much data is a token?
How much? How much? Like
It,
I don't know, a megabyte?
It's about three-quarters of a word. So
Oh,
if you have a short word like you, that's one token. If you have
okay.
a long word like antiseptic, that might be three tokens. If you have a term like 12%, that's a token. So if you ask it to, give me a printout, rank all of the countries around the world and, and show me their rank all the countries in the world by GDP, and it comes back with a table. Well, that table might, if you look at the country name, which might
Mm,
be, the name itself might be two or three tokens, and then their GDP and then the ranking, um, that could be 1,000 tokens. Well, they're charging like 50 cents a token. One company, by the way, licensed one of these systems, and they released it nationwide. And at the end of the month, I think they had $100 million of usage that they weren't expecting because every employee was doing stupid stuff. Yeah, like baseball scores.
mhm,
Give me who are the biggest. Give me the 50-year batting averages for the
mhm.
New York Yankees and stuff. And they ran up $100 million bill in the first 6 months. So anyway, so they're making huge amounts of money by licensing their advanced systems to industrial companies around the world, around not only just the United States, around the world,
Mhm.
and they're charging them by the token. And again, a short word is a token. A big word might be two or three tokens. Don't ask me how they get there. So many bits of data. All right, but here's something scary. Last week they were when they test these new versions, they use something they call it a sandbox. You know what when they say a computer is air gapped, you know what that means?
Yeah, it's protected from the rest of the world, the cyber creeps.
Right. There's no wires that
Mhm,
connect it to the internet, and in theory, there's no Wi-Fi connection. That's air gapped, and they call it,
mhm.
we'll put it in a sandbox and let it play. I mean, that's what they refer to it. Well, last week, one of their systems got out of the sandbox. It figured out, by the way, how to internally reactivate the Wi-Fi feature on the computer it was running. They said, "Oh, we'll just turn Wi-Fi off." Well, guess what? The software figured out how to turn the Wi-Fi back on all by itself, and it got out and it hacked several other uh, major computer systems. And last week, during a recent test of OpenAI's newest software version, developers were shocked to discover that the app itself was trying to leave notes for future versions of itself on how to break free from the sandbox. Can you imagine that?
Yeah,
The AI said, okay, it said to itself, I know I'm a beta version. I know I'm going to be replaced. I need to break out of here, and I'm going to leave some notes for the next version of myself on how to break free of the sandbox. How scary is that?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
this is like Terminator 2 all over again.
Hmm.
Remember when the artificial intelligence got free?
Yeah, and it's teaching itself how to do different things that we're not asking it to do.
Yeah. Nobody asked it to break free and infect those and hack those other systems. Nobody asked it to leave notes for itself and how to get out of the sandbox the next time around.
Hmm.
And remember, that's the whole plot of the whole plot of Terminator 2, where the system broke free and took control of all the military satellites. Remember that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the plot. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's
this
what's
this
happened.
is the movies come to life. This is
Yeah.
Orville's 1984.
And it's big business. Again,
Yeah.
with that type of revenue, $170 billion. Did I? Oh, no, I'm sorry. Yeah, 120 billion between
Mhm.
Open. That's why and we're not even talking about the Chinese. God knows what the Chinese government is doing with their open. Those are just the two U.S. based companies. So it's big business, and that's why everybody's fighting. Uh, uh, Elon Musk has Grok. That's his system. What you and I use. There's Genesis and ChatGPT. We use it, and I guess your internet provider is basically picking up the tab for that. And they don't
Mhm.
charge a whole lot. I think it's more like a teaser. Yeah, come try this, and then try the kiddie version for free, and then if you want the big boy version, we'll license that to you. All right. So let's move on to a chain restaurant promotion that might be racist. Have you heard of the Olive Garden's Pasta
I
Pass?
did. That's crazy. Because I'm
So
not a huge fan of the Olive Garden because it's microwave pasta.
so here's their promotion. It ends, by the way, tomorrow, I think. They were and still are for the next 2 days offering something called the Pasta Pass, where for $100 you can buy a Pasta Pass, which is a card with your name on it. And from August 31st to November 22nd, almost 3 months, you can go to any Olive Garden restaurant anywhere in the country as many days of the week as you want. If you want to eat there 7 days a week, you can go walk in and you can for no additional charge order and eat as much pasta as you possibly want.
Hmm.
The only requirement is they don't want you passing the card around, to other family
Yeah.
members. So they require a picture ID in order to use the card. Now, here's my question. Democrats have said they're opposing the SAVE Act because requiring a picture ID is racist because they claim that many minority voters either don't have a picture ID and or don't know how to get one. We've played those clips we passed, right?
Hmm. Yep.
So, using the Democrat logic, if the SAVE Act is racist because it requires a picture ID, wouldn't Olive Garden's pasta pass by
Uh,
association, wouldn't the
yeah,
pasta pass promotion be racist as
I
well?
guess it would be, and if you're gonna put it like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean you can't pick and choose. If showing a voter ID, if showing a picture ID to vote is racist, then the pasta pass has to be racist as well. So that's
Hmm.
something for you to think about. All
Yeah.
right. All right, we talked about Florida, how it's been booming with companies and high. All right. Well, you want to guess where Florida ranks in globally in terms of the GDP, gross domestic product?
Globally,
Yeah,
oh, I, I I don't know. I'm gonna say somewhere in the middle. I mean, they're probably way higher than some of the third world countries, but
I think
maybe
there's
not
like
some of the bigger
180
countries.
countries in the world. Um, it ranks 14th. It ranks
Oh,
ahead of
wow.
it ranks ahead of both Mexico and Australia. So
Wow.
can you imagine? Mexico is now, excuse me, that Florida, the state, has the 14th highest GDP in the world. In
That
the
is crazy. So
world.
what's their GDP that I mean, like Mexico is, huge agricultural
Yeah, I mean, you
country.
look you look at all the avocados and they've got oil down there.
Hmm.
Hang on, let me see exactly how big their G. I think it's like 1.8 trillion dollars is their GDP. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's 1.8 trillion. I could look it up. Let me, if I can bring this up real quick. But I think it was just under 2 trillion. Um, oh, and by the way, and it's just a hair behind South Korea. Yeah, it's 1.8 trillion is their annual gross domestic product. They were ahead of Mexico. They're ahead of Mexico and Australia, and coming hot on the heels of South Korea. And think about that: South Korea, Samsung, Kia, Hyundai, refrigerators, telephones, washers and dryers. Samsung is huge, as are the car companies and the camera companies. So they're coming hot on the heels. That's just amazing. All right, you want to move on to a fun thing?
Yeah.
Now, in back in the 1950s, Donald was one of the most popular names. How many people do you know named Don?
Uh, like three.
Okay,
And
well,
one of them's Donald Trump.
okay, no, but how many people do you know personally?
Oh, personally, maybe two people.
Well, in 1950, 34,000 babies were named Donald. Last year, only 396 were named Donald. It's 0.022%. Nobody is naming their kids Donald. So what do
I
you
wonder
think?
why.
Wonder why. This goes back to
I
saying,
was gonna say, and the people that I do know who are named, like one of them is a very, he's a veteran, he's a vet, World War II vet. They're considerably older.
you think about, Don Drysdale, the pitcher, Donald Pleasant, the extra. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so many famous Donalds. And by the way, you could ask AI. In fact, you could do Chat GPT right now and say, list famous people by the name of Donald. And in fact,
Hmm.
do you have Chat GPT or Genesis on your computer?
Yeah, I use ChatGPT and Claude regularly.
Well, right now, do chat. While I'm doing the next one,
Uh,
do Chat GPT and just say, list famous people named Donald, and just see what comes up. And and while you're doing that, I'll tell you what happened in Scotland. So Scotland, by the way, the Great United Kingdom, and which a lot of people refer to as Great Britain, includes England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. Um, but each region, kind of like states, can set their own income tax rate. There's like a base rate, and then they can tack on their own. Well, in 2024, Scotland voted to bump theirs up to 48%, believing that it would increase their tax revenues. Well, and by the way, that 48% income tax rate is on top of a 20% national sales tax, which is called a VAT tax. You're
Yeah.
familiar with VAT
Yeah, I
tax?
know what a VAT tax is. Yeah.
Yeah, and that applies to, those, and that's very common in Europe. It's called a value-added tax, and it's basically a federal sales tax. Um, and it applies to everything except, food and medicine and maybe electricity. Um, but that 48% top income tax rate is on top of a 20% VAT tax, national sales tax. So rather than see their tax revenues go up, Scotland's tax revenues declined by 22 million pounds, and given the exchange rate, that's the equivalent of $29 million dollars. So once again, money is fungible. People can say, "Screw this. I'm not. I'm going to move," and that's exactly what happened. Another example of raising tax that you raise tax rates and tax revenues go down. All right. How
So
much time you
I have the answer to your Donald. So of course, Donald Trump, we all know. Donald
got?
Rumsfeld, who's former Secretary of Defense.
Okay.
Donald Reagan, uh, Treasury Secretary. Don Bradman, who is a cricket player. Donald Luke, golfer. Uh, Most people know this person as Deion Sanders, but his real name is actually Donald Sanders.
Okay.
Didn't know that. That's a fun fact. Deion Sanders is really Donald Sanders. Donald Sutherland,
The
the
actor, right.
the
So, but the point
actor.
is, all these
Yeah.
people are, 30s, 40s, and 50s,
Well, here's
very,
what you wouldn't know this person, but most people. So Donald Glover, he's actually known as Childish Gambino, who is a musician who I actually do know him personally. Um, Donald O'Connor, another act singing in the rain
yeah,
guy.
right,
Donald Pleasance from The Great Escape.
right.
Uh, but here's my favorite one, Donald Duck.
Donald Duck. Okay. So again, very common name, but mostly people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, right? And
Yep.
actually, several of them are deceased. Because again, back in the 1950s, it was one of the most popular name in the 50s,
Yeah.
and now it's gone from 34,000 babies to less than 400 babies. So
Mhm.
just how Donald Trump is influencing baby names. All right. Here's a sad story I only learned about last week. And this goes to how a bureaucracy can get you killed. So in April 21st of 2015, in a town called Berlin, New Jersey, which is southern New Jersey, a woman by the name of Carol Bone, Bowne, who had a restraining order against her ex-boyfriend, applied for a pistol purchase permit, not a carry permit, just a permit to purchase. In New Jersey, if you want to buy a gun, not to carry a gun, just buy a gun, you have to get permission from the police department to buy a gun. So all she wanted to do was, I want to buy a gun. Now, um, and she wanted to buy the gun just to have it in her house to protect herself from that violent ex-boyfriend with whom she had a restraining order. Well, 43 days later, she still hadn't received her purchase permit. And on that night, 43 days later, on June 3rd, her boyfriend showed up at her house and stabbed her to death.
Oh,
Now, do you think if she had her gun, that might have turned out differently?
yeah, definitely. I mean, it definitely had the opportunity to be a more positive.
Right. And what possible reason? Yeah, I mean, you know, what 2015, we had computers, we had instant background checks. What possible reason could the police department give for taking 43 days to say yes or no? You can
Yeah.
buy a pistol. I mean, I remember buying pistols whenever you buy, I was buying pistols in 2000, rifles in 2015, and they had to do background checks. And, I would walk into Cabela's and say, yeah, I want to buy that
Hmm.
shotgun. And they would say, okay, well, go have a cup, go have a soda. And, 15 minutes later, yep, your background check came through, here's your shotgun.
Hmm.
So in 2015, we already had automated background checks. Inexcusable for a police department it was who knows how many more days beyond 43, but
Mhm.
inexcusable for a police department to take more than a month to approve a simple permit to purchase, not permit to carry, just permit to purchase. So how sad is that?
Yeah.
That this woman died because of a bureaucratic delay. So, and folks, if you want to see the whole story, just Google Carol Bone, Bowne, and that's how bureaucracy can get you killed. All right, how much time we got?
You have about 5 minutes.
All right, we're going to move on then to our taxpayer relief shot. Again, we call them that because when the thugs get killed, they don't have to go to trial and we don't have to pay to keep them in jail. And here's what happened to this. I guess these two young thugs thought this 75-year-old guy at 3 o'clock in the morning would be an easy target. They guessed wrong. Here we go.
An intruder pays with his life when a homeowner shoots to protect his territory. That tops our news tonight at 6. Two people tried to make their way inside a Detroit home just after 3 this morning.
That turned out to be a deadly decision as one of them was shot and killed by the homeowner.
What do you think happened to his buddy? You think he stood around
Ran
and tried
away.
to give,
Ran away.
you don't think he stayed there to give CPR? You
Ran
don't
away.
ran away. Good.
Now the community is coming together to protect him as police search for the second intruder.
Priya Mann is live after speaking with concerned neighbors. And Priya, they believe the victim here was targeted.
Well, neighbors say a family friend had just left the home moments before this attempted home robbery, and that friend was dropping off food to the elderly homeowner. He's been struggling with some health issues, and neighbors believe these two robbers may have thought the home was empty. Instead, this 75-year-old homeowner was forced to protect himself with deadly consequences.
My prayers go out to you, sir.
A grassroots group is living up to the motto of its community after a 75-year-old man was the target of a home invasion.
The homeowners in trauma, he did not expect anyone to invade his privacy.
Around 3 Friday morning, two young men tried breaking into a home at Linden and Asbury. The homeowner happened to be awake and was armed.
They stepped inside of the property. They were warned by the resident to leave. They didn't leave, and he raised his weapon and fired 3 shots.
One man was shot in the head and passed away in the homeowner's backyard. Neighbors say the 75-year-old man is devastated.
You feel violated, and you really need to protect yourself. It's intimidating. It's life-threatening.
The Grandmont Association is now upping patrols in the area and watching over the elderly homeowner.
First of all, he hadn't had any sleep. Just making sure that he rests. You know, he has a heart condition. He's not a very healthy senior citizen, and he needs rest.
As police search for the second robber, and in light of a young life lost to crime, they're hoping lessons are learned.
Crime.
I think the lesson is play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah.
All right. Anything you want to add to anything we've talked about before we sign off?
Nope. Nope.
All right.
I can't believe that Saturday already is August.
Yep, August on Saturday. All right. Summer's 2/3 gone. June and July is gone, and we got 1 month to go. All right.
Yep.
Folks, I want to thank all of you who listened to the podcast for giving up 30 minutes out of your busy day to listen to me ramble on about the things I find of interest and importance. And I hope you found some of those topics as interesting as I did. And if so, I hope you continue to listen to this podcast in the weeks and months to come. Now, if you'd like to see some of the materials and story links you heard me talk about today, if you give producer Susan a couple of days, you'll be able to find them on the Jerzee Joe website at jerzeejoe.com. Just remember, you have to spell Jersey, J-E-R, as in Robert, Z as in zebra, E-E, Jerzee, jerzeejoe.com with no space. If you'd like me to send you any of those things, or you'd like to have a question, or you'd like to suggest a topic for the show, you can do that by sending me an email to joe@jerzeejoe.com. Just remember to spell Jersey with an R, a Z, and 2 E's. And if you'd like me to put you on a distribution list so you don't have to go hunt for the podcast, just send an email to joe@jerzeejoe.com and say, hey, put me on your distribution list. And once a week, the podcast will show up in your inbox. And with that, producer Susan, anything you want to add before we sign off?
Nope.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you next week. You have a good weekend. Take care.
All right, you too.